Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 5 English lesson on root and Latin words. So, root and Latin words. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username, as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 5, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of Greek and Latin roots. All right. So our chapter is Greek and Latin roots. Our subject is English language arts, grade 5, and the lessons that we are going to focus on today under the chapter of Greek and Latin roots is to use Greek and Latin roots as clues to the meanings of words and to use the meaning of the words as clues to the meanings of Greek and Latin roots. Yes, this is grade 5 to 8. So I'll be speaking on a level of grade 5 to 8. However, we are on the chapter on aplusstudents.ca. We're on the chapter of grade 5. But this is basically grade 5 to 8. All right. So basically a root, right? A root is a part of a word that has a certain meaning, right? So a root, it's a part of a word and it has a certain meaning. So words that share the same roots, they often have similar meanings that are related to the meanings of the root, right? And if we think of, let's say, if we think of words, if you think of prefixes and suffixes, right? This is just something that is a bit similar. If you look at prefixes and suffixes, the word pre, the meanings of certain words that are pre, right? Like for example, I can't think of an example now. But for example, when it comes to prefixes, right? The meaning of the prefix sometimes it means the same thing, especially based on the roots, right? So then it means that whatever other words we have, prefixes or so on, the words then become similar or the meanings of those words become similar, right? Because of the root words that are the same, right? Because remember with prefixes, you have your root word and then whatever word we add in front of it, we call the prefix, and whatever word we add after that, we call a suffix, right? So the same with Greek and Latin roots, right? We say that the root is a part of a word that has a certain meaning, and words that share the same root, it's like one root, and the other words that share that same root, they often have similar meanings that are related to the meanings of the root. For example, the root phone, right? The root phone, it means sound, right? So the root phone means sound. So now if we look at certain words with that word phone in, then it means that the meanings of those words are going to have to do with sound, right? For example, a xylophone. So xylophone, right? There we have our root, which is phone. Here we have phone in. So xylophone. It is a musical instrument with wooden bars that are hit by small hammers, right? So that is already one meaning that has the word phone in, right? And it's to do with sound because it's like a musical instrument or musical bar or basically a musical instrument with wooden bars that you basically need to hit and it makes different sounds, right? That is a xylophone. And then another word with the word phone in, right? It's called a telephone, right? And there we have the word phone in, telephone. So xylophone, and here we have telephone. And telephone, it's a machine that can carry the sound of someone's voice over a long distance, right? Meaning that if you call someone, you would then hear the sound of that person's voice, right? You won't see the person, but you'll hear the sound of the voice. All right. And another word for these words that we called, for example, basically root words, right? Another word for that, it's sorry, it's phone with an E. Sorry, it's phone with an E, right? So it's with an E, actually. Thank you. So it's basically phone with an E. So thanks for picking that up. So basically also words, right, with where we have the root that is basically the same, right, or similar in meaning to other words that is linked to that specific root, right? It can also be the same as saying that it is homophones, right? Because homophones are words that sound the same, but they have different meanings, right? So homophones are words that sound the same, but they have different meaning. It's the same as almost saying xylophone, telephone. Um, Here we have another word, homophone, right? There we also have the word phone in, right? So homophones and homophones are to do with sound because homophones are words that sound the same, but they have different meaning. And an example of a homophone is where you say buy and buy and buy, right? So these are three different words, right? They sound the same, but the meanings of each of these words are different, right? So if you basically look at all three of these words, which is xylophone, homophones, and telephone, right? All three of these words have the root word of phone in, right? So they use the same root, which is phone, right? And literally all three of these words are different words, but because all three of them have the root word of phone, and phone means sound, right? Then it basically means that the meanings or the meanings of these words are kind of similar, right? Or they are related due to the fact that the meaning of the root is the same. So basically, all of these meanings are related to the concept of sound, whether it is xylophone, right? It's a musical instrument with wooden bars, so you heat it in order to make sound. So you get like different sounds or different sounds you'll get based on the heating of the bars. Homophones, it's again words that sounds the same, but the meanings are different. And I made an example of buy, because this word buy, which is buy, means to purchase something. This word buy, bye, means goodbye. It's short for goodbye. And this word buy, which is by, it basically means either something near or something far, right? And then we have the word telephone. And telephone is a machine that can carry the sound of someone's voice over a long distance, right? So basically, the root word, right, has a certain meaning. And our root word that we are currently talking about is phone. And the root word, the meaning of this root word is sound, right? And the words that are related to this root word, right, or that shares the same root word is words like xylophone, homophone, and telephone. And all three of these words, right, or all three of these meanings, they relate to the concept of sound due to the fact that they have or they share the same root or the root word, right? So, do we understand? Do we understand? Should I explain again? Can I continue? All right. All right. So basically, right, we said that, okay. So we said that root words, right, it's basically a word that has its own specific meaning. And then we have certain words that is related to that root word. And then they end up having similar meanings due to the fact that they share a specific root word, right? So now they're also saying that you can use your knowledge of roots, right, to figure out the meaning of words that you haven't seen before. So, for example, right, the root word that is called cyclo. So, the root word cyclo, right? So, the root word cyclo, it means either circle or it means wheel, right? So, cyclo, that is the root word, and the meaning is either circle or it is wheel, right? Then we also have the root which is meter. So here we have another word which is meter, another root word which is meter. And meter means to measure, right? But now if you look at the word cyclo, right? Cyclo also has like a similar meaning to the word circle. If you really look at it, it's just that there's an O at the end and circle has an E at the end. And if we look at the word wheel, right? If you think of the very first wheels that was also invented, the very first wheels that were invented were round wheels, right? And of course, a wheel is round, right? In order for it to move. So which means that cyclo means circle and a wheel. Just think of a wheel being in a circular formation. And then if we look at the word meter, I think with the root word, it can be basically at the start or it can be at the end. It really depends on the specific word. As long as your root word is, for example, it's a word that it shares, let's say, different other words, as long as the meaning is the same. So I think your root word, it can either be, let's say, at the beginning or at the start of your word, or it can be at the end of the word. Because if we look at xylophone, right, and you look at homophones and you look at telephone, the root word was at the end. And now if we look at these words, right, if we look at these words that we are making mention of, here we have cyclo being our root word, and we have meter as a root word. But now in this case, they have added these two words, and basically cyclo is in front, or the word meters at the back, but it can basically be in the front or at the back. But I think the whole aim of root words is to show that it is a word with a specific meaning, and all the other words that shares a specific meaning, it means that the meanings of those words are similar. I think it honestly depends on the specific word, right? Because if you look at the root word, right, when it comes to prefixes and suffixes, then the root word can be in the middle, right? Because now you add both suffix as well as a prefix to a specific word, and then it creates this new meaning, right? That is now when we add the root word to, let's say, if it's with prefixes and suffixes, but I'm not sure when it's specifically mentioned like in this context. All right, let me quickly look for an example of um, prefixes and suffixes. It's like, let's say, if we no problem. If we look at prefixes and suffixes, right? This is now a bit off topic. If we look at prefixes and suffixes, a prefix, right, is, let's say we have a root word, right? You have a root word, and this is a word that stands on its own. Um, let's say, I can't even use the word great, right? Because this word great and this word great is two different things. But let's say if you have a word ungrateful, right? If you have this word ungrateful, right? This word un is a prefix, right? And then this word full is a suffix, right? And then this word in the middle is usually the root word, right? So that is basically, I think it answers your question with can the root word be in the middle? I think probably in the sense of if it's to do with prefixes and suffixes, but I'm not sure if it's also to do with Greek and Latin roots. Right? I think we are still going to find more out about that based on, or let's say, as we are going to go about our lessons, right? But yeah, with prefixes and suffixes, our root word is in the middle, right? That is if you use both prefixes and suffixes with a specific word, or you can maybe just have just suffix with the root word, or just the prefix with the root word, right? All right. So now we have the root, which is cyclo, and cyclo means circle. And then we have the root meter, which means measure, right? And if you also look at the word meter, right? If you think of a meter box, right? With a meter box, especially if you maybe like have a water meter or something, there's specific measurements on there. They are basically taking measurements, or not even necessarily measurements, but they are taking the tally of how much water you use. So every month, let's say the municipal office will measure the amount of water that you have, or the consumption of water that you've used for the month, for example. So that is to do with meter, it's to do with measurements. But now if you put these two words together, cyclometer, right? So cyclometer, it is a device that measures how many times a wheel turns, right? So circle and measure, which means that cyclometer, it's a device that shows how many times a wheel turns. That is correct. The root word is basically just the part of the word that carries the meaning of that word, right? So the root word, it basically, it like you say, it carries the meaning, right? And whatever other words that is basically attached to that root word will have a similar meaning, right? So whether it is different words, like an example that we made with xylophone, telephone, and we made with homophone, right? So which means that our root word, it carries the meaning, and it carries the meaning of sound, right? Which means that whatever other words that is basically latched on to our root word will have then similar meanings to sound, right? It's the same with cyclo, right? If we were to now find words with the with the root word cyclo, then it means that all our other words that is to do with cyclo will either um have the meaning or a similar meaning to circle, or will have a similar meaning to a wheel. And the same with meter, right? Our root word meter. Whatever other words that will have, let's say, the root meter to it, right? They will then have a similar meaning that is to do with measurements. So the root word is the part of the word that carries that meaning, right? So whatever other words, whether it is different words, but they have the root word to it, then it basically means that they will have that similar meanings based on the root word. And here we have an example of, let's say, xylophone, telephone, and homophone, right? Phone means sound, which means that xylophone is also a musical instrument where you make sound. Telephone is a device where you can hear somebody speaking, right? That you hear sound from the other side. And homophones are words with the same sound, but they have different meaning. So, because encyclopedia has got cyclo in. Um, so encyclopedia again is, I think it's a book, or it's a basic encyclopedia gives us information on subjects, right? I don't think encyclopedia is the same as, let's say, circle or wheel, because encyclopedia, right, it's a book that basically gives us information on subjects or aspects of a subject, right? That is an encyclopedia, but it's not something to do with circle or wheel. So I don't think encyclopedia basically adds to that specific word. All right. Because basically the root word of cyclo, it basically just means circle, and that is not to do with encyclopedia, but cyclopedia has cyclo in it. So I'm not sure if that also makes sense. I think it can be a bit confusing at times. All right. I'm not sure if that basically answers. I don't think encyclopedia has the root word, because remember it's the same as saying dictionary, right? Um, there's certain words that has a root word, and then there's certain words that is just a straight word, right? And that is why I was saying with, let's say, for example, with words like prefixes and suffixes, right? Those are words that, for example, has a root word, and you can either latch a prefix in front of that word, or you can latch a suffix after that word, right? And then it basically will have, it will either change the meaning of the word, or it will have similar meanings, right? But the thing is with let's say with prefixes and suffixes, right? It's also a bit different to roots in Latin words, especially the way we basically put it in this context, right? Because if you, for example, add both prefix and a suffix to a word, then it changes the meaning of that whole word, right? It changes the meaning of the word unless we just add a prefix, and then the prefix will specifically mean something, and then the suffix will mean something. So whatever suffixes you put according to the root word as well as the suffix, then the meanings will be similar, right? All right, let's go to aplusstudents.ca. We are still in our next lesson. We are going to do more lessons on Greek and Latin roots. I think the more we are going to go deeper into the other lessons of Greek and Latin roots, I think that is probably where we will find out more about where the roots basically stems from. Um, Hopefully they bring up encyclopedia or other words in order for us to see where it really comes from or where it really stems from. Right? I'm not sure if that answers you for now. But for now, the root word is basically the part of that word that carries the meaning. And whatever word that is being latched on to that root word, right, the meanings then become similar, right? All right, so we basically explained that the root word, oh, it's actually phone without an E, right? For home, xylophone, and so on. So we see that the root is a part of a word that has a certain meaning, and words that share the same root, they often have similar meanings that are related to the meanings of the roots, right? So if we look at here, it says the root auto. So the root auto, it means own or it means self, right? So now they want to know, what does the word autobiography mean? So autobiography. So if the root word auto means self or own, then what does autobiography mean? So now it's almost like we need to find out what also biography mean, right? And then you put the two words together, which is autobiography. But if the word auto already means self, then what do you think biography would mean in your own words? So I'm not sure if you guys heard about the word autobiography already. So if auto, right, means own or self, right? Then basically an autobiography, it is basically, let's say, a book that someone writes, but you write it about your own self, right? It's like saying an author, but an author is just a writer, right, who writes books. But an auto means own, it means self, right? And an autobiography, it's basically a book that someone writes about his or her own life, right? You're writing about your own self, you're writing about your own life. That is an autobiography, right? All right, let's go to our test. Let's see if we can. Yes, so an autobiography is basically a book that you write. You write about yourself, you write about your lifestyle. It's about you. Because remember, most times authors, they write about everybody else, right? They make up stories about events. But if you write about yourself, you write about you, you write about your lifestyle, then that is an autobiography. All right. So now they're saying, right? Here's the first question in our test that says a thermometer is a tool that measures heat or temperature, right? So the root meter means measure. What does the root therm means? Is it light? Is it heat? Or is it sound? So a thermometer is a tool that measures heat or temperature. The root meter means measure. What does the root therm mean? Light, heat, or sound? All right. So if we were to guess what the root therm mean, right? And especially if you put it together, right, then it would be heat, right? Because therm measure and it's measuring heat. So well done. Heat is correct. So the root port, right? Port means carry. So port means to carry. What does the word portable mean? Portable. Is it able to carry? Is it able to be easily carried? Or is it able to be easily seen? Or is it able to be easily heard? Portable. Able to be easily carried, able to be easily seen, or able to be easily heard. And this is basically just us putting the root word to what we think it is. So the root word is basically what guides us based on what the meaning is. All right, so if the root port means to carry, then portable will mean that it is able to be easily carried, right? Carried. And that is basically, it stems from our root word and the meaning being carry. So well done. All right, so psychology is the study of human behavior and the mind. The root logi, right, means the study of something. What does the root psych mean? Does psych mean light? Does it mean life? Or does it mean mind? So psychology is the study of the human behavior and mind. So what does psych mean? Light, life, and mind. All right. So basically, the meaning of psych is mind because it says psychology is the study of the behavior as well as the mind. That is the truth. It basically says in the sentence, right? And it basically means that is why if you look at the root word, the meaning is already given, right? The meaning is already given. So all you need to do is just to grapple the idea of what that specific meaning is. Or it's already given in the sentence. All we need to do is just to take that certain words from that sentence that means whatever it does. Right? Then it says the root vis means to see or to look at. What does the word visible mean? Is it able to be seen, able to be changed, or able to be bent? Visible. All right. So, which means that visible, right? It means that we are able to see, it able to be seen, right? Because our root vis means to see. So well done. That is correct, right? So now we also use the meanings of the word as clues to the meaning of the Greek and Latin root. Here we said a telescope is a tool that is used to look at something that is far away in outer space. What does the root scope mean? If they say a telescope is a tool that is used to look at something that is far away in outer space. Now they want to know what does the root scope mean? Scope. So basically, scope can mean it's either to look at something or if you can observe something, right? So if you put that together, it means that, it is where you are looking at something or observing something that is far away in outer space. All right, let's attempt our test, right? Because this is basically just us using the meaning of the words as clues now. It says, a telescope is a tool that is used to look at something that is far away in outer space. What does the root scope mean? Is scope to pull or drag, write or draw, look at or observe? All right. So basically, scope is to look at something or to observe something, and you're looking and observing at something that is quite far away, right? So to look at or to observe. So well done. That is correct. A hydroscope, right? A hydroscope is a tool that is used to look at things beneath the surface of the water. So what does the root hydro mean? Is it to write or draw? Is it water or is it light? So we need to say what hydro mean, right? To draw, water, or light. And if you look at this word hydroscope and you look at telescope, hydroscope and telescope, what is the root word that both of these two words have? Since we are on that, what is the root word that both of these words have? What is the root that is similar that both of these two words have? We have telescope and hydroscope. So they have scope. And what does scope mean? And scope basically mean either to look at something or to observe something, right? And telescope is basically us looking and observing at something, let's say basically far away. And then hydroscope is again to look at something beneath the surface of the water. So do you see now how that word, the root word, for example, has its specific meaning, and whatever other words that is latched on to, it can be another root word that is latched on to that specific root word, then the meanings of that words would then be similar, right? All right, let's do one more before we end. Geology, right, is the study of biological, chemical, and physical history of the earth. What does the root logy mean? Is it the study of something far away, break, or burst? So, geology is the study of the biological, chemical, and physical history of the earth. What does the root logy mean? Is it the study of something far away, break, or burst? All right, so basically, logy then means the study of something, right? It's the same as, here we have another word, geology and psychology. Geology and psychology. And the root words for both of those words, which is geology as well as psychology, the root word is logy, right? And it's a study of something. With geology is the study of biological, chemical, and physical history. Exactly. Even neurology. Yes. It's a study of, I think neurology is a study of the mind, I think, or something of the brain. Psychology is the study of the mind and behaviors. So, do we see how that root word can basically have that one meaning that will basically have like it will have other similar meanings to whatever those words are, just based on that one root word, right? So, great job, everybody. So, well done. That is now the end of our lesson on Greek and Latin root. In our next lesson, we are going to continue with Greek and Latin roots, and then we will have a more deeper understanding of what Greek and Latin roots are. But thank you very much for joining the class. Thank you very much for interacting and for all the questions. All of the questions are valid, and I appreciate the questions. And I really hope that all the answers that I gave could answer the questions that was asked. All right, so this is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much for joining the class, and you must have a good weekend further. Goodbye.